Hello, I am Nita, and this is the feasibility of a Wi-Fi hotspot lending program. So in our current world, we are heavily integrated with the internet. We can see this with the outage this year where Blackboard went down and a lot of other services as well. With that, like Blackboard going down, we weren't able to access our education resources such as textbooks or the homework or turning in stuff. And although that was temporary, lasting a few hours, we only have to experience that for a little bit. But some people are unable to access internet at all. And what I'm going to bring up is the issue of the digital divide. So this is the gap between those who actually have internet and do not. And what not having reliable internet access does is it really limits opportunities to participate online and find resources that they may need in education, work, telehealth, or communication as well. And let's say that we gave them this resource that they need of like the devices to give them the internet. They need the knowledge as well to actually use the internet effectively. Because if they're not able to use the internet effectively, they may fall into scams online with finding work or putting their information into the wrong places. So we want to be able to teach them how to crucially navigate and find good resources, jobs, and be able to use services that they would like. So our solution would be this program. And with this program, we are going to provide these portable Wi-Fi hotspots. And with the hotspots, we need to give them the digital literacy that they need. And to do that, we're going to use workshops and support. So with workshops, we're going to be teaching lessons on how to find good resources, jobs, and such. And support is more of an additional thing to give them more support on their issues that they may run into. And we want to be able to also create a connective environment when doing these workshops between these people who are trying to learn how to use technology together. So the impact that we expect from this is greater access to education and jobs. We want to be able to make sure people are being able to learn from this additional resource of the digital world. And we want to have communities be more connected with each other and really, in the long term, reduce the entirety of the digital divide between a lot of different communities and give these online opportunities, such as people trying to market jobs, more outreach.
Hello, my name is Ash. When it comes to technical feasibility, we're going to be looking at the availability of this technology and its limitations. For availability, these portable hotspot devices have been available for as far back as 2006 and maybe even further. Over time, many different companies have offered different versions of this device. More recently, it's been companies such as TP-Link, Solace by Simo, T-Mobile, and others such as AT&T and Verizon that offer these devices. However, they have their limitations. If we're looking at increased latency, as you can see in the graph, these Wi-Fi hotspot devices overall tend to have a higher latency than other devices. But the maximum goes to about 3.5 milliseconds, which tends to be negligible for most common tasks. They also have a limited range, as they are built to be compact and transportable. Therefore, components that would have led to a higher range are unable to be implemented in such small devices. They also have a higher security risk. As with all hotspot devices, it is very easily hackable. So due diligence must be done to prepare users so that they are aware of these risks and able to protect themselves against them.
Looking at the economic feasibility, we can go over the four main expenses, those being capital expenditures, variable cost that would scale with the program, fixed costs, project-related costs. Adding those together, we can split them into seed and working capital, then combining everything, we can find the total estimated cost. Capital expenditures would be the necessary one-time purchases to launch the program. So the portable hotspot devices themselves, activation fees, protective cases, labels, charging equipment, an asset tracking system, and backup replacement stock of 5%. Variable costs would include the monthly data plan for each device, replacement costs that we would reserve considering about 5 to 10 annual device attrition, minor accessory replacement costs, and administrative time for checkout support. Fixed and project-related costs would cover a broad range, the main expense here being the hiring of a program coordinator. But a couple areas here could be almost no cost if we use already existing services, such as existing library systems for the checkout and the web page/portal setup. Also, storage would be something that we would not have to worry about if integrating with an already existing community facility, such as a library or a school. Seed capital is the funds needed to successfully launch and operate the program for the first 3 months. Adding all those costs, we'd be looking at anywhere from $7,000 to $16,000. Working capital is the monthly expenses to run the program, which would come out to around $1,600 to $2,000, considering all monthly recurring costs, such as data plans, coordinator payment, the software subscription, and the replacement reserve. Combining both seed and working capital, we would get an estimate for the total startup capital for the first 3 months, which would be around $10,000 to $20,000. Here we also include a contingency capital reserve that is estimated to be around $1,000 to $4,000. The funding would come from 4 main levels, firstly being digital inclusion or community technology grants, which would be from state or federal governments to even corporate grants. The secondary funding would be from partnerships with telecom providers offering nonprofit hotspot devices and data pricing. Some funding could also be brought in from local libraries or public school district backing that could match the funds that we're putting up. Also from fundraising campaigns during the launch of the program.
When it comes to the operational feasibility, one of the most important parts is being able to build a team that is able to get the priority tasks done. Our priorities with this specific program would be asset management and communication and accessibility. Our program team should be tailored to these tasks because these are the most important tasks that we'll need to get done in order to successfully run a nonprofit organization program. As it is nonprofit, it is more likely that we will be employing volunteers rather than actual staff members. However, every member should understand the purpose of this program and be able to be motivated to improve it to the best of their ability. Now, these members should be focused on specific priorities. However, these are the most important priorities for this program. For asset management, we're specifically looking at obtaining, organizing, and monitoring the devices in our possession for this program. We need to be able to obtain and organize these devices in a manner that we can keep track of all of them, and as we lend them out, we should have an organizational system that is helpful to it, as otherwise that may lead to many issues where devices are lost or damaged and unable to be used, which would lead to a lot of funding losses. In a similar level of importance, we also need to have a high level of communication and accessibility. So we need to advertise properly to the specific communities that we want to reach, as well as communicate and collaborate with those communities. Overall, organization is key, and these teams will need to be focused on the priorities that are assigned to them.
Hi, I'm Shreya Balaji, and I'm going to be talking about the legal feasibility and the unintended consequences for this project. First, let's look at the legal side of the program. We'd have to think about a few main areas: privacy, who owns the technology, liability for misuse, and what exactly happens if a device is lost or broken. Since users go online through our hotspots, we would have to follow privacy laws like the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA, and the FTC privacy rules, otherwise known as Federal Trade Commission rules. That means keeping people's data safe by using secure connections and not saving personal information. We'd also need to use a terms of use that clearly tells people what's allowed and what's not. We would also have to account for ownership and liability by following any licenses that come with the device or software from internet providers. The nonprofit needs to make sure lending out these devices doesn't break any agreements. To protect the organization, users should sign a short agreement saying that they will use the device responsibly. Internet fillers can also help stop illegal activity like pirating or hacking. Handling device loss or damage is also another important aspect of this. We need to clear rules for what happens if a device is lost or broken. Borrowers could sign a contract or pay a small deposit. That way, the organization doesn't face legal or financial issues later. Now, coming to the unintended consequences, or the problems that could happen even if we don't mean for them to. These include misuse of internet, people becoming dependent on the program, unfair access, device loss, and misunderstandings about what exactly the program is for. To prevent these problems, we could take a few steps. We can add filters to block illegal websites, teach users how to find more affordable internet plans, and make sure lending rules are fair for everyone. Tracking or labeling devices can also help prevent theft, and good communication with the public can help people understand that the program's goal is education and not just free internet.